portrayed them as the most glamorous outlaws in American history. Their chaotic crime spree lasted 2 years and claimed 14 lives. But who were Bonnie and Clyde? What drove them to a life of violent crime, and how did they evade capture for so long? Newly released police files and the discovery of a remarkable family memoir, the true motives and secret tactics behind the legend of America's most iconic outlaws. In February 1932, a 21-year-old car thief and burglar called Clyde Barrow was released after 2 years in prison. He returned to the family home in the deprived district of West Dallas. There is some evidence that Clyde tried to go straight in the deprived district of West Dallas. But his return to crime seemed depressingly inevitable. In 1932, the United States of America was in economic meltdown.
Once I built a railroad.
No one has ever really told the true story, in my opinion, of Bonnie and Clyde, my brother and his girlfriend. It's always been some kind of lie or something. It's never the way I've known him.
There was a woman sitting on the truck, and a man in overalls, a little bitty fella, said he had the keenest black eyes he had ever seen.
Me and Clyde started the bad gang in prison. Raymond was the third member of the original gang. Bonnie was the fourth, and there's several others later.
Bonnie was small, thin, and what I call her dishwater blonde. No, just not very blonde, but blonde.
The truth, told here for the first time by those who were there, is a story of love, family, and violence. The dark clouds of the Great Depression covered both the body and soul of the United States. In the grim years that followed, it reduced many of America's once solid citizens to desperate people willing to do anything they could to survive. Shantytowns, bread lines, and riding the rails were common sights. Banks closed in many towns and cities. Farmers were willing to go almost any place to improve their lives even a little bit. The Dust Bowl certainly added. Against this dark curtain, a different kind of hero captured the imagination of many Americans. Desperados such as John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson drove through the Midwest robbing banks and gas stations. They were involved in wild shootouts with the law, which captured newspaper headlines across the nation and a public following that rivaled stars and sports heroes. They became idols of sorts to the common man because they represented the law of survival. Leaving several dead men in their wake, Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker had a career that lasted only a little more than 2 years. And yet history has judged them to be two of the most fascinating criminals of that era. Clyde Barrow was born to Henry and Cumie Barrow on March 24th, 1909 at Ennis, Texas, 35 miles south of Dallas. Not much more than sharecroppers, even in prosperous times. The elder Barrows barely survived from cash crop to cash crop. They decided to move to Dallas in the early 20s to be with their older children who had already moved there. Opening the Barrow gas station on Eagle Ford Road was a much-needed step up the financial ladder, but money problems, now intensified by the Great Depression, made just getting by difficult. It was while they lived here that Clyde and his big brother Marvin, better known as Buck, began running together.
The money was tight and times were hard, and they did have, chip in to help and all, the family. Well, I guess at an early age they wanted things that, that they couldn't have, and so I guess that was the best way to get them. Just go out and take something or something or another. And then after that Clyde got in trouble, well, it seemed like that every time that anything happened, they always tried to lay it off on Clyde. Yeah, and they questioned him and come out and always thought it was Clyde or Buck that done something. I knew it wasn't right or nothing, but I love both my brothers. And I don't think they did a half the things that the newspaper said they did. Clyde I think he was a tender-hearted boy. I loved him very much. He was very good to me. He bought me my first, I don't know if he bought it or where he got it, but he brought me my first bicycle I ever had in my life. I kept that bicycle till I was grown.
Bonnie Parker was born at Rowena, Texas on October 1st, 1910, and her family moved to Dallas when she was very young. At age 16, she married a small-time thief named Roy Thornton. But the relationship was short-lived. Roy was caught during a burglary attempt and sentenced to a long term in prison. Never bothering to divorce her husband, Bonnie, who lived close to the downtown area, worked at a variety of local cafes and became acquainted with several members of the Dallas Police Department, including Ted Hinton and Bob Alcorn. Both were later to play a major role in the last moments of her life.